Okay, welcome back to my stream on how not to make a leather sheath. I'm Nomad Technician. So, a few things that might seem different. We have a lot more space below here now. That's because I've actually got a proper rig set up now, an overhead rig to mount the camera on, because the mounting arm was just a little bit too short for what I wanted. And another few things, this is the model, well, a cutout of the drawing that we did last time. That's modeling the blade. I did do the final selection on which material to use. And I figured out what was wrong with my camera, because apparently having it run in full HD, no, not full HD, in 4K is not the intended thing for more than 20 to 25 minutes. Which, funnily enough, is about where the camera cut out last time. So we should be good now, and we can actually start with the interesting part of doing some leatherworking. Right, so let's have a look at what we need to do today. We're going to transfer the drawing on the back of this with some pen that I am well prepared to actually have around. We'll see whether that works. It will be good enough for what we're trying to do. But we can rub it out easily, but we can also draw it in easily. We could probably use a different pen if we wanted to, but a pencil is perfectly fine. I might actually get a different one, but we'll see. I also want to go over the tools that we need for this, because most of the tools are fairly simple, fairly cheap, at least the basic versions. So, basic things that we need. We need something to cut leather. That's fairly easy. There are enough like scissors like this around. There are tons of alternatives. Just buy the one you want. The first time you do this, my recommendation, and this is true for all hobbies, don't buy something that is hugely expensive, especially if you don't know whether you will continue the hobby. Now, point one is you don't know whether you'll continue. Point two is, I actually have to zoom in a little bit more. There we go. Point two about this is, if you buy cheap and you realize you don't need the tool, you haven't wasted a lot of money. And if you're unsatisfied with it, or it breaks, or you realize that it's not the quality of tool that you need, you won't have wasted a lot of money. You can just buy a higher quality one. And yeah, the same if it wears out, which most tools will at some point. You can then buy something that actually is higher quality. Will most of the time cost quite a bit more, but you will know at that time whether you need it or not. Something else that I will recommend, it's not necessarily for every time you do leatherworking, but it's certainly something that you want if you do some stitch leather, is some of these. I've got a single, double, triple, and quadruple of these. These are called something. I actually don't know what they're called in English. They are basically stencils. This allows you to, well, they're not stencils. They're hole punchers. There we go. You take a hammer, hit them on the back a couple of times, and it will punch a hole through the leather. You probably wouldn't need this if you just did a single layer of this. You could just use a different tool. But if you want this to go through 2 to 3 layers of this, then that is what you really want. These two, this is the alternative for making holes. This is, well, it's for widening and making holes. Basically, it's a needle of sorts, and this is the actual needle that we need to get the thread through. This has a hole in it for the thread. I have 2 pairs of these because they came with 2 packets. I also have 2 sets of these, which are leather needles essentially. These are the other puncher and needle, and then we have an set of actual needles. Again, you might not need these. You might want them around, you might not need them around. We'll see which ones we are using this time. Probably, because of the way I want to make this, we'll probably just use the... Well, that's a good question. We'll probably use 2 needles, but I don't know which ones yet. You're going to need some string if you're doing some stitching. I already selected mine. Well, I think that I've selected mine. This is probably the one that gets closest to the color. I kind of like that. You can either use, recommendation from my end, either use something that blends in very well, or if you don't have that, use something that doesn't blend in at all, but that is complementary to the color. This has a slight reddish tint, but it's mostly brown. So what would I use for this? Black would be fine. I guess white could work, but I would probably use either something in color or something black to keep it as simple as possible. There are alternative browns, there are alternative colors. You could make it multicolored if you wanted to, but just select something that, you don't want something that half blends in, because that looks like you tried and didn't succeed. What else do we need? We won't, but you might need something like this. This is a folder. So this is well, you could call it a knife, but that's not quite accurate. I think it's called a bone, but I'm not quite sure what it's called in English. You basically, this is for folding over leather and making creases in it. Again, we don't need this for this. You're going to see why once I explain what the design for this one is that I settled on. One thing that we will need is this. This is a file. Some of you might have seen something like this. It's just a nail file essentially. It's a little bit rougher than a nail file, but this is just once you're done with your design and you get into the finer, what would you call that? Into the finer stage, well, to the last stages of refinement of your work. That is to file over the edges where the glue might not have, well, where the individual layers might not have met perfectly, or where you have misaligned it a little bit. You know, it's to help with that. You don't need all of these. Again, you don't necessarily need a file. You can do it without one. You don't necessarily, well, you do need something to cut the leather. That's the one thing that you need, and you also need leather glue. Again, we have that here. That's the stuff that we really need for this. I prefer to glue and stitch. Just stitching is not quite, I mean, it would probably suffice for what we're trying to do, but I prefer to have it a more solid connection, so gluing it is preferable. If you want to treat the edges, so at the end of it we will have something like this sticking out, and if you want to treat that, you're gonna need some kind of burnishing gum or something similar, and the appropriate tool to use with that to actually apply it properly and polish it up. Sorry about the noise. What you're going to do is you're going to need something that looks like this. It's got a number of, what do you call it, indentations, I guess, of different sizes and different depth, and that is for different strengths of leather. And you just rub that around to polish the outside. Anything else that we need? We need something to apply the glue with. That will be probably some kind of, good grief, this is dried in. Probably some kind of, what is the term in English? Dang. Brush, I guess. Well, it's not a paintbrush, it's a glue brush, but it's a brush. If you want to refine the edges, like if you want to trim those around and round them off a little bit, you might want something like this. I haven't actually gotten this out of the packaging because I'm not sure that I'm going to need it for this. I'll see how it turns out. Now, in our case, that's pretty much all the material that you really need to start working on anything. You could get a... Actually, don't know what that's called. One of these might be interesting to some of you. This is to kind of clamp in some piece of leather, and then you have that secured and you can work on it. This is generally if you need to apply some more force. Now, we're working with a pattern today most of the time, but we have a big advantage. During the later stages, we actually have the knife here to check whether everything fits perfectly, and if it doesn't, we can adjust it. If we just have the pattern, like the pattern is good, but it doesn't actually give us a good 3D impression of what the knife will handle like. So the thickness especially, not that important in our case, although, you know, could be. If you just have a pattern, so I have a couple of other knives to do this for later on. I just got this pattern for a different one, and then I have to be a little bit more careful with what I'm designing and what I'm gonna be able to work with. Because if I do this too tight, that's not as bad as having it too wide. If you go too wide, your knife will be slipping. If you've got it too tight, the leather will have a little bit of give in it. So erring on the side of caution is always the best, especially when it comes to width. But that is not as important for us because we actually have the original to check. So let's bring the design onto here, I'd say. I'm not a fan of using this, to be entirely honest. Do we have anything else that we could use? Let me check. Do we have, we have tons of other pens and pencils around, but which one would be appropriate? That is the big question. I don't want to use this one because that has some logos on it. I'm not sure this still writes. But there's only one way to find out, and for some reason all of my stuff is not present right now. Did I put that somewhere else? I did. I put it in here. Great. We'll find something in here. Pretty sure. Alright. So let's try whether this works. That does not look like it will. And I threw away my testing strip earlier. It doesn't write at all. Okay, that's good. That's fantastic. Are you working? You're still working. Do you work on this one? We're not going to use some material up here. I guess it does. So, simple ink pen, Lamy. It does work. It doesn't smear easily, and it's not that easy to get actually completely rid of, but you can if in a pinch. Alright, so this is what we're going to work with. Alright, so we're going to cut out 3 layers for the knife. Little thing about the design. I discussed last time about making a fold over design to keep the back end straight and then just have it fold over. I'm not going to do that. I will do a full workaround. So it will be a full 3 separate pieces as opposed to the 2 pieces that I did with my first design for a different knife. Now, the thing about this one is, one side I don't care if it's around here, but for the other one, I kind of want the other one to be a lot longer, so that will be a different layout. We also want to save as much material as possible, so we kind of want to start a little bit closer to the edge. We will need overhang because, especially down here, because we want a lot of material between the edge and the outside world. That is, after all, what we're trying to protect. So, we also want some overhang down here. This might actually be fairly decent to have that like this and then just go up. Yeah, that's actually not too bad. So, I'm going to freehand this because most of the adaptation will be done afterwards. So, that should be fine. Maybe a little bit more material. We're mostly gonna go around. Let's actually put in a little bit more. All right. So I want to keep this, and this is just because functionally we're fine fairly early on with most of this, so we don't have to worry about that. What we do want to worry about is how far this actually goes up down here, but that's, all of this is perfectly fine. Then we do want to mark off how far in we want to set this. You always want to set this in a little bit because you don't want the edge to come out and cut yourself if something happens. So I say if something happens, if it starts to slide around in there, you don't want it just coming back a little bit to actually have this part stick out. That part you don't care about, but this part you really don't want. So you actually want to trim that in a little bit. This already, I didn't show that before. Because of how we made this pattern, this already overlays it a little bit. So if I lay this down and I put this on here, you can already see that this is larger. So putting in a little bit more isn't that big of an issue. But you also don't want to put on a ton. And again, keep in mind that this is larger, so you don't really want to overdo that. All right, where were we? I shouldn't have pulled this off. Surely I didn't put that in too far off, I don't think. Was I higher than this? That looks fine. That looks better. That looks perfect. Right. Again, most of this will be invisible, so it's not as important to get the layout perfect. Which one do I use? I guess we're going to start from this side. So, what I didn't do on this one is normally I would have a line over here where it starts to, where the tang starts, where the blade stops. This, of course, on this one, would be straight up. Well, actually not quite straight up. So if I were to lay this back here, we have a little bit of an overhang. So this is how far this can go. That's basically how far you want the sheath to go back. No further than that, but no less than that either. Let's check whether we actually are at the right point. Yeah, that's good. And again, if it doesn't quite fit, you can always take off material. Putting on material is somewhat more difficult, so rather be generous on that end. And now we actually have a mark on where to put this, so that's fine. Actually, I want a bit more material down here. Yeah, we will use this line, this outer line. I kind of want to not take too much off down here. Could I make that a little bit higher? I guess I could. Like so. That's good. So just for us, we're going to make a little bit of a mark here where this actually ends. On the back, we basically do the same thing. We're just going to draw that over. Now, what is quite important to decide beforehand, and this is something that I haven't done yet, this goes too wide actually. I'll get this a little bit further in. What I haven't decided yet is whether I want to, well, on which side I want the edge to be, the input. The little helper flap to get the knife in perfectly. And this is what it looks like. So there's going to be the sheath, and we're going to draw in the inside as well. Again, keeping in mind that we don't need to draw this in perfectly, we just want a couple of points where we need to glue this later on. So here, and here. You can't see that here. Just so that we know where we have to go with the inside. And as you can see, this is a little bit, like if I were to cut this here, this would be a little bit close to the edge. This is perfectly adequate. Again, this is a little bit larger, so we have a little bit of overhang. If you can't see this anymore, that would be perfect. Now, we need a second one. So, before we do that, big question. So, this is now this side of the right side of the blade. What we're going to do now is the left side. Now, how do we want to put that in? Normally, if you're right-handed, you want to put the knife into the sheath like this. So what you want is you want the flap on the downside so that you can use that. So that would be this side, the one we're drawing right now. So this is where we're going to put the flap in. Again, something to think about before you draw in the first pattern. As I said, professional, very professional. Good. All right, we're going to do it like this. And this is where the fun begins, because we want, we're going to start back here, draw it forwards and backwards, and then we're going to, once we have this part, we're going to do the design for the bit at the end. And we're going to have to ask ourselves a question whether we want to do just a flap, just like the other one, or whether we want to have something that actually fixes the blade in place properly. Problem with that is you actually have to sew it in. Well, either sew it in with some Velcro tape, or you have to put in something that actually fixes it like a button. And putting a button in there is not really something that I want, so I'm just going to do the little opening, and that should be fine. Again, you can always disassemble it afterwards and like sew in an additional piece if you want to do that. But for now, I think I would actually be quite happy with not doing that. Because that's a design decision that I'm not quite sure I want to have at that point. I'm going to show you why in a moment, actually. Alright, is that enough to go towards the front? I do think it might be cutting it a little bit close, so let's go back a little bit further. Again, we're going to come from this side, we're going to leave. So what you could do is what we could have done is draw in the outside of this, then we would have something to just draw along, and it would be equal on both sides, which is not the worst idea. Alternatively, we can cut this out now and use that as the base to draw on, which is also an option. That will actually give us the highest accuracy. And then just use this as the inlay for the third drawing, which we have to do. Might not be the worst idea. That's actually probably one of the better ideas that I've had all day. So, we're going to cut this out. Probably have to find a different way to arrange this, because all my tools are at the other end of the table now, and I have to kind of lean over here without getting into the way and get my stuff, or I have to walk around, which is equally uncomfortable to get up every time. All right, for this one, you can go with a serious cut right away, or you can do a rough cut with enough space on the outside. That is entirely up to you. I'm going to go in here right away. I am comfortable enough with that. All right. And yeah, this doesn't have to be perfect. I just don't want to cut off too much material at this stage, because every bit of material that I lose now does not come back. I know I'm being obvious. And yeah, I don't mind doing this now, to actually have a smaller piece of material to work with, which is a lot more comfortable. That's why the rough cut might be for you. Like if you're dealing with very large materials, you might just choose something simple. As you can see, like this ink is already kind of rubbing off, which is perfectly fine. I don't mind if it does that. In fact, I'd prefer if it did. And yeah, I can just smooth this out a little bit, and the rest will be done with the what are they called? Come on. With the good grief. The files, there we go. Good grief, that didn't want to come out. All right, how are we looking? So as you can see, we need to cut this off, definitely. In fact, considering where this is, we probably need to take off a little bit more material here. That's fine. We'll see about that. Actually, I can draw this in properly if I want to now. Again, if you have the if all you have is this one, be aware how that is done, because as you can see, this was a little bit larger than it needed to be. But yeah, I'm gonna go in here on this end, and I'm gonna go in there on that end. That should be fine. We're gonna draw that down here, and then we should be good. I could make this like stand out a little bit more. On this side, don't really want to do that. Right, giving it a little bit of a taper here. Taper? Is that a taper? I don't know. It's not a top here. Might be a taper. And now you can inlay this with fabric. I don't think that's strictly necessary. I could try to get this cleaner at the edges, which if I were doing something else where I didn't use files at the end to actually file that down, I would, but in this case that is not as important. So with that we can go to the next one, because now we have this guy. And now we can actually use the edge to draw that out. We can place it quite easily. Just a reminder what this will be like now. This would be placed in here. This actually fits perfectly at the edge. Again, we have to be a little bit more careful to kind of fit this in better. So I'm going to redraw some of these to be more precise. That's fine. That's fine. And that's fine. Good. Right. That will be a pain to cut out. Like last time I only had to do the bottom side because that was one closed thing. And I only had to do the bottom of this. Going all the way around hopefully makes it fit a little bit better, but it's also going to be a pain to actually work with. Because I have to, like, if this were the piece that I had to cut out for that, I'd have to cut it out like this. I will use the same leather for the inlay. You don't have to. In fact, I might have a look around for some other leather to use for that, but for the time being, let's do it like this, and let's cut that one out. And again, we can go to the edge here. We want to save the material. That is perfectly fine. And yeah, we don't mind staining this a little bit. This is just ink, it washes off. It's perfectly water soluble. I should not have done the back side of this, I just realized. They actually do draw, okay. Yeah, this I will just kind of move off. Again, like this is fairly rough cut, and you can see that it's kind of wobbly. Again, no problem. This will be worked on afterwards anyway. Don't really care for now. So, the backside, as I said, I kind of want to use this as a fold. Not as a fold, as a kind of guide. There we go. To actually push this in. problem that I'm facing now is that this will run into a couple of issues if I do it like that. And that is, well, this does fit in here nicely. I will need to know where this handle begins, because I don't want to get in the way of that. Where did I put you? Oh, here. So I don't want to get in the way of that. I'm going to use this part as the guide, and this the rest of them will be completely unaffected. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just continue this line, and I'm just going to use that just a little bit. It doesn't have to be big, that's the point. And that will go into there. And so if I put that on here, this will come up, be just a little bit bigger. And that will be enough to have something to guide that in. I could make it a little bit larger, like I could pull that further back, or could have pulled that further back and made that a lot larger, but I think that is fine. And if I don't like it, I can always just cut it off and put something on the outside. So again, I can take material off, I can't really put it on. At least not quite as easily, so it will be a bit of a faff if I do that. So I'd rather have that and not like it than not have it and never know. All right, so second piece. You haven't seen what I'm doing, I just realized. It's no use not having to do this. Can actually go a little bit forward still. Now here I'm going to do a rough cut. Careful not to cut myself. Like this cuts leather, so it will cut your hand. That is one thing that you might want to keep in mind when working with these tools. All right, one part left, which is the middle layer. Again, I'm going to have a quick look around whether I actually have something else to put in there, because of the way that this is designed, we don't need something as thick as I could have put into the other one. And I think that and I'm going to show what I mean in a moment, when I'm looking at the knife itself and at the thickness that it has. All right. Okay. So you'll note that this is not quite perfect, as expected. We have a bit of overhang on both sides. On the lower one is slightly bigger. That's because we used the upper one to actually draw this on. I could have just cut on the inside of that. Once this is glued together, we're just going to file it down anyway, so don't care as of yet. One thing that I will point out that is that right now I could go in with the scissors again and cut it down to the exact specifications. I'm not going to do that because I want to be more precise, and the scissors are not very. Unfortunately, these are meant for quite a bit of heavier leather. Probably could have used just some normal scissors for this one. In fact, I'm going to demonstrate that. This is some thick leather, normal scissors, cuts perfectly fine. So if you're only using like thin leather like this, you're fine with not getting like these heavy grade scissors. I will have a look around for some different leather strips, I think, to just put in here, in between this. Why am I doing this? So this blade at the end is actually thinner than the leather. Well, if I compress this, maybe not. So this is the limit to the thickness that I actually need, and it will sit okay in there if the dimensions are right. So I can use this leather, should be fine. I'm just going to have a quick look around. What I will find, I might have some of the strips that are left over that might be perfectly suited for this, but I suspect that I probably don't have anything that is quite the size that I need, because we're really talking about like leftovers. Let me get that front of here and let's have a look. Alright, that's a no, and this is where we come to the interesting parts. I definitely don't need you guys right now. I could use this. That's actually meant for something else, so it's a pass for now. That is too thick, that is too thick, that is also too thick. That is really nice and thin. I might be able to actually fit this. Alright, what else do we have? Definitely not you, because you're not leftovers. You, however, are, but you're black, you're too thick. You are all way too thick. Okay, that's it. So that's the only one that comes, that is possible anyway. Let's have a look at that. And we shall decide on whether we want to use it or not. Get back in here, you back in here, you guys get back in here. Alright. You fit in here properly last time. You don't anymore. Like so, like so. Right. So this is the rest of the leather that I used last time. For the other one that I showed you last time. This is actually only marginally thinner, and it's also a lot stiffer. Not that much stiffer. Well, yeah, it is stiffer. So I could use this. I'll probably get it just right to actually be able to cut out something from this. But while it is thinner, this just fits at the back. But if I compress this down, which this can still be compressed, this actually goes thinner than this. So I'm inclined to actually use just this material. And that should be good. So I will do that. The advantage and disadvantage of using a different type of leather in between as the middle part is that it looks differently, which shouldn't be too much of a surprise, I guess. Yeah, it gives a design feature. The question is whether you want that design feature. You will see the difference one way or another, but it will be more pronounced if you use a different colored leather. But yeah, we will go with that one. And yes, I could probably just use scissors to cut this on the to cut this to shape a little bit better. But again, I won't do that. That's what we have the next one for. So, what do we want to do in this? We definitely want to draw this one on. We did this last time, we want to do it this time as well. Again, we don't care if it's a little bit larger than that. Can I actually fit that over both? That is a little bit too close to that. Like so, we have enough material on this side. And we just pass that one by, especially if we go for the back. So the point is, I want to get rid of the holes in a way that I don't really care about, so this is actually quite good. I don't really need the back side of this, but I will draw it in, just where it's interesting to me. And this will basically decide how the knife sits inside the... That's good enough. Sits inside the sheath. Because this now traces the outside. And we will then trace the inside in a moment. And how we trace the inside dictates how the knife sits. So this is actually a fairly important part. And I'm going to show one thing that is also quite interesting and quite important. All right, there we go. The inside. Now, you can do it either with this one, but as we discovered, this one is sitting quite loose. I'm probably still going to use it. And then cut slightly to the inside of that. I guess. So, this should be enough when it comes to the overhang, so it should be fine. Anything that is more than that will be cut away anyway. We're going to cut to the inside of this. It's quite important in this case. Now, I'm going to show something else that is quite important. That is going to be, I'm going to show you that in a moment. I'm not sitting on this correctly. All right. Did you move? You did move. No, you didn't move. No, you didn't move. I moved you now. This is a little bit thin, but should be enough. Should be more than enough, in fact. The only thing that we are worried about is getting the hole punches. The hole punched in here. The holes punched in here. Did I actually go right across one of the holes in this? No. Okay. So this leather strip can't be right. I didn't go that close. No, I didn't. Okay. So this leather strip is insofar quite important as we definitely do need to get this longer. We don't want to cut this off there. We want to cut this off here. All right, here and there. All right. So, quite important bit on this. this part of the blade, the way that this is curved, we have a slight curve in here. This isn't perfectly mirrored by the curve down here. We hope that it is. Well, that's as near as makes no difference, which will allow us to actually slide this in, which, as you can see, this does, but it's also way too wide. Like if I'm at the front of this, I kind of want to be here, actually. So let me put that a little bit differently. We actually want to sit like this, which you can see how much difference this makes. So we actually are going to use the knife to actually determine where we want the separation to be. I've moved it up. I can always cut off material at the bottom if I want to, if it's too much. But this is kind of where we want to sit, because we don't want this to kind of slide around in this. All right. So the inside of this is actually the one that we are interested in. Yeah, still nice and sharp. There we go. All right, how would I propose to cut this? This is going to be quite interesting. Once we cut out the inside, this is going to be very difficult to handle. On the other hand, this actually acts like the inside of this. So we can just, instead of, like the thought that you might have is, oh no, I now have a thin strip that I need to cut off, that I have to handle. Actually, no, you don't. You handle this part, so you don't have to worry about the inside strip. All right, and again, we don't have to use the expensive, well, I say expensive, the purpose-built scissors. This is fine. On this type of leather, this actually does a perfectly adequate cut. In fact, I'd say you're probably slightly more precise with this one. He says as he struggles to remain precise with this one. Yeah, going around corners is never fun, no matter what you're cutting. All right, so got that. We're now going to trim the outside of this to the point where we want it, and then we're going to do the inside. Yeah, everything that we struggle with now is not going to be too much of a problem, because we can later on simply file that down. Once it's actually glued together, we have a lot thicker material for this. So that should be enough. And yeah, all you need for this is some sharp scissors, which the other ones are, but these ones are as well. They're reasonably sharp, so I'm not really struggling with cutting this out. Cut this one back. And now we're going to cut the inside line of this. This is going to be interesting. And in this case, we don't really want to see the lines on our cutting side. What you normally do want to see. Don't cut through this, by the way. And now we're going to cut the other side. And yeah, now I'm doing exactly what I said I wouldn't do, which is handling the small bit. In fact, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to precisely cut up to where I need to go here, which is about there-ish. In fact, I'm going to cut to the old line here to leave a little bit of space in the front where the tip would be. Now, there are a bunch of other knives that you could have been using. There are a bunch of just cutters that you can use, which would also be perfectly fine on this. They are a little bit difficult to use with like soft leather like this, because you will have this leather move around, whereas thicker, sturdier leather would be able to stay in place more just by pushing it down. This one, as you can see, moves around with every movement that I make. And that's our inlay that we want to use. So, first assembly. This is going to go up here, this is going to go down here. It's going to be roughly like this. The knife is going to come in here. Ouch. Fits reasonably well. Probably going to have to make some adjustments, most of which will be, let me have a look over here just a second, so that I can now actually, if I push this over the edge, that should give me a rough idea of what this will look like. So like this, and I believe that is perfectly fine. So as you can see, I cut up a little bit too much up here. Why though? Did I miss something? I don't think so. No, that was pretty much on the line. Must have misdrawn a little bit, that's fine. This should be good, this should be good. This should be sitting perfectly fine in here. It actually gives me a little bit of space to move this further forward, which is what okay, that's why. I wasn't pushed forward far enough. Yeah, this is what I actually want. So this is now sitting right against the back. This is sitting, yeah, so I want this to be slightly different. I can already see one change, so this is not something that I want up here, this bit. So I kind of want to cut deep a little bit further forward in this. All right, number one, and number two. Nope, that wasn't quite it. So the problem with doing that with scissors is you actually have to do a little bit more work on this than you otherwise might. Yeah, I cut this in a little bit too deeply now, but that's fine. Again, you will never see this again on the inside. On the outside, I mean. And yeah, if I put that in now, that will perfectly fit and not squish the edge at the front. That a little bit further down. There we go. Oh, and this I will just trim off in a moment. I didn't use the other one, did I? By accident? No, I did not. We will, in fact, not trim that off because that needs to be there. All right. Let's glue that in. Let's have a look. Actually, that should be a bit further up. That should be like so. Yeah, because I did use this. See? All right. Let me have a closer look to this. At this, I mean. So you're supposed to be there. You're supposed to be there. So I'm aligning it with the outside right now, just to see how this will fit if I do that. It's supposed to go up to there, which this isn't perfectly aligned with the outside. It is now, and that's pretty perfect. The rest of the material will give way, so that is certainly something to keep in mind. Am I missing something? Well, a bit. So the problem with a leather sheath is, unlike something like a wooden sheath, this is pretty much flexible. What you want a sheath to do is actually to be protecting your edge, essentially, so you don't want the edge to be in contact with anything. What I've done here is I actually have to probably take a bit away from the top and maybe even the bottom just to get this properly set up, because if I put that in like this, I'm actually in contact on pretty much all sides with everything. Because it's supposed to sit in here like so, and it will be in contact on all sides, which is not really what I want. On the other hand, what I want to protect it from really is other knives, and that would be perfectly adequate for that. So I won't take anything off here. I will glue that in, I will see how it fits, it should be fine. Okay. I'm still inclined to take a little bit off at the bottom, to be entirely honest. That still strikes me as a little bit too much material in there. And we're almost there. Well, we're almost halfway there, I should say. All right. So this has taken off some material. This should now look a lot better. Was the right side. Okay. So at the top here it's still a little thick. I hope that won't come and bite us in the ass later on, but I think we are good. Move forward a little bit, put that in here, turn that around. You should be there and there. So this is where it was planned to be. And yeah, I mean, this looks a lot better. Still got to be careful about where I put this stuff. So that will be interesting. Very interesting. So, a few things that we will do today is we're going to glue these three together. I'm thinking of only gluing two of them together, but I think I'm going to do all three. For that, we're going to need the file. Why do we need the file? Well, this stuff is treated, so we're going to rough it up a little bit to just enough to get the glue to stick, the glick, of course. So yeah, just rough this up a little bit. Doesn't have to be like an insane amount. Most of this will be, most of the adhesion will come from this being stitched afterwards. The glue is just there to actually make it kind of water protected against water. All right. So normally I'd say we're going to do the rest tomorrow, but tomorrow unfortunately is an off day for streaming for me. Although I might just do the 1 hour to get this done. Okay. On the other hand, it is quite a fast sticking glue apparently, so we might just finish this up today. I shall see. Alright, where's my brush? And where's something to put under here, because I don't want to do this. Well, I could, it's just regular glue. Brushy brush, brush, brush. There you are. This was for glue. This was used for glue last time. Don't need you anymore. Don't want you around in case I mix you up. And we are going to open this one with a something or other. Let's check that it's still good. Interesting. This might no longer be good. This is... I mean, this was obviously sealed. It still smells like glue, but it... It should work like glue. But yeah, this was definitely not this consistency when I had it last. When I had it over last. Oh dear. Let me check that out really quick, because I'm not sure that I can use this leather glue. All right. Yeah, that's definitely not the right consistency. Clean the leather, apply the leather glue, apply thin but consistent layer. That is no bueno anymore. I mean, this was perfectly sealed, so this should not have leaked in any way, shape or form. And this is not what it should look like, and yeah, that is done for, most definitely. I'm pretty sure. I mean, it still stakes. No, this is... Yeah, this is definitely done for. Okay. Well, that's not good. What are they called? All right. I guess I should use something like this rather than anything else. That is probably the better choice, rather than wasting that's a lot cheaper. Why are you so much cheaper? Because you're 30 grams and you're 90 grams. Yeah, so this is definitely done. So we're not gonna even try. I'm just gonna do this. Okay, well, apparently this is where we're gonna stop today, because I didn't remember to actually check whether the glue is still good. So that's great. That is not what they said. Okay, that's a hard pass. All right, I'm gonna have to, just for your information, what this looks like is this. This should be a fairly thin liquid. Well, I say thin, it should be a fairly thick liquid, but what it shouldn't do is peel away from here in one solid outside container, one solid blob essentially. And yeah, this is not good. This is just not good. Pretty sure. I don't know whether I could actually like mix this with anything to get this reactivated again, but this is most definitely done. I'm fairly certain. I mean, if I rub this, no, I think this is just not good. I'm pretty sure. Well, that's too bad. So, kind of wanted to get this done today, at least the gluing. All right, but I do have a week to kind of look into this and get this done. So that's what I'm going to do. Thank you for being here. And, well, thank you for watching. And I'll see everybody next time when we will be doing... well, the gluing I will have done. Again, it's not difficult. Just apply some glue to this, apply some glue to this, wait a moment, press it on, fix it in place for a moment with some strength. Use something like a straight plank of wood or something to apply even pressure, and then do the second part. Again, apply a little pressure, and then you can wait until it's dry if you really want to. I would recommend waiting until it's dry before you cut off the excess things and sand it down. But if you don't want to wait until that long to actually punch the holes and get the string, then that is up to you. But we will continue this probably on Friday, and once we are done with that, I'm going to look into streaming something else. I might even stream something right now, well, in a few minutes, if I'm so inclined. Until then, bye-bye.